Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Two Girls Without Cancer. Once again, I am just one girl without cancer. Ashley is out due to another unforeseen illness that we were not seeing anything on the radar for. So she's out. Unfortunately, she's going to miss a really great show today. I have a really fantastic guest with us, and I cannot wait to introduce you to her. Her name is Katie Sorensen. She is a nurse practitioner, and her company is called the Weight Loss NP. So without further ado, here is Katie. Hello.
Hey, thanks for
Hi.
having me. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I'm so excited to have you here. Like this season, we really wanted to focus on other people and their stories, and move past cancer. So last year, just to preface,
Mm,
who we are. Well,
yeah.
actually 2 years ago now, Ashley and I didn't know each other at all. Live in the same town, but both diagnosed with aggressive later stage cancers. And it was just through kind of mutual friends that we reached out to one another and we're like, "Hey, you have cancer, I have cancer. We're the same age. Want to be best friends?" That
Wow.
sort of situation. And so we've been able to support each other through this journey.
Yes.
Our healing journeys have been so different. Like neither of us have the same journey whatsoever. I went to Mexico and then I did the chemo radiation surgery here in Canada. And for her, there was not an option for her. So she just went strictly holistic as well as some surgeries. But
Wow.
we've both been navigating this together. And then this past year,
Mhm.
we were like, let's change the name. It used to be Two Girls
Yes,
with Cancer, but like, let's change the name because
absolutely.
both of us are in remission currently. There's a heck of a lot more to life than just being a sick person. So we
I
changed.
love that.
Yeah, we
And
changed.
it's like it's putting that out to the
Totally.
universe that, this
Totally.
doesn't define you and it's not gonna be forever, hopefully, right? You guys are
Exactly.
absolutely getting over this. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, that's why we focused on, let's talk to other people who are experts in their field and talk about not only things that her and I go through, but just like that anyone can relate to. Like our
Yeah.
our demographic is more like women our age kind of thing. And so,
Yeah.
a lot of what we've been focusing on is like anxiety and eating and weight and
Yeah.
panic attacks, although that falls under anxiety, and other people who've had cancer and things like that. We just wanted to branch out and talk to
Mhm.
people, like I said, who are experts in their field, different from just having cancer.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I don't know specifically how old you are, but I think in general,
38.
me too.
Oh, hey,
Yeah,
86.
hey girl. But I think as like we approach mid-age, I think it's like a reawakening of like, hey, we actually really do need to pay attention to our health and our
Yeah.
wellness. And so much
Hmm.
of our like 20s and early 30s, you're taking care of other people.
Literally.
And right. And then you start being like, oh, cancer, wake up call of a lifetime. My God, I can't
Hmm.
imagine. But even just small like health changes become kind of like, hey, I actually really need to refocus on my own health and my body and my mind and my spirit. So,
It is so true. Like 2 days ago, I was at my grandma's 96th birthday party.
oh wow.
And I thought, okay, 96, I'm 38. Like this
Yeah.
this woman is 60 years older than me. And
Right.
like I feel like I'm 96 some days. And I'm like, how am I going to live 58 more years to
Right.
match her age when
Right.
I can barely even get out of bed most days? So, it's like
Right.
really an eye opener that, well, number one, like lifestyle has to change. You can't continue
Sure.
to live the way that you're living, especially after a major diagnosis. Like you
Yes.
can't do it. You really can't. Your whole world, your whole perspective changes. So you have to change that.
I bet.
What really attracted me to your message when we were chatting is your piece on weight loss. So
Mhm.
obviously every woman in general, but like especially every woman our age is like,
Yeah.
well, at least all my friends are like, "Oh my gosh, I need to lose weight. Oh my," this is like
Yeah.
a daily conversation,
I know.
and it's
And I wish
hard.
it wasn't,
I know.
right? Like, I
Mhm.
know it is what I specialize in, but I very much,
Yeah,
wish us as women didn't have to spend so much darn
totally.
energy on it.
If this
Yeah,
was like the Renaissance age, we would be revered for how much extra meat we have.
I
Okay,
know,
we'd
right?
be nobility. That's
Just
what
in the
we'd be.
wrong era.
Exactly. So why don't you tell our listeners like who you are, what you do?
Awesome. Yeah. So, Katie Sorensen, nurse practitioner, and I own a medical weight loss practice
Amazing.
and metabolic health optimization practice. We're based out of Colorado, and we see patients in Utah as well. And we can do nationwide GLP-1 weight loss coaching. But as far as where we can medically manage and prescribe medications, it's Colorado and Utah right now. So,
Very cool.
yeah.
So explain to me GLP-1.
Yeah. So that is a class of medications called glucagon-like peptide 1
Hmm.
is the longhand for it. And it's a class family of medications that was initially developed and researched for diabetes control, worked fantastically for that, was found to help people lose weight. And since then, the manufacturers have gotten FDA approval for weight loss as well.
Right.
And they really are game-changing medications. They are those
Right.
buzzy words that you hear and read about
Yeah.
a lot, like
Yes.
Ozempic and
Ozempic.
Wegovy. Yeah.
Yes.
They work really, really well, and they are game
Okay.
changers.
That's
They're
good
not
to know.
they're not like magic, do it all for you.
Right.
But they really help a whole bunch and make the lifestyle changes that we're
Mhm.
after to just generally live healthier, easier to
Right.
choose and easier to be successful with.
The buzzwords, like you said, like
Mm.
Ozempic,
Wegovy,
I've
yeah.
heard such mixed reviews about these things. I've heard people go on them, love them. It was a game changer. I've had people say they went on them, destroy their lives. To me, it's like, oh, instant weight loss. Perfect. I want to go on it. And then I'm like,
Sure.
no, no.
I know.
It's just
And
something I want to do more research on.
yes, and that's the right attitude is
Yes.
curiosity and, just learn more about it. And,
Hmm.
if you feel like it is interesting, then get curious about it, ask the right people, and, then have a medical consultation, see if it makes sense for your medical picture. But happy to fill you guys and your listeners in a little bit, today. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
So,
I had
um,
a friend go on it. She was in I think a car accident way long ago, so she's got a lot of back pain. So
yeah,
exercise is really tough for her.
yep,
So her doctor prescribed this to her. She said she didn't lose any weight, and then she had to get her gallbladder removed. They said that this was a cause of that. So I hear that, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't wanna go through that."
poor
I had
thing.
another friend who found it on the black market
Yeah,
and took it and was very, very sick from it. So I know obviously that these are not its intention,
yeah,
right? It's not to make people sick, it's not to make them have
right.
organs removed or anything like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it has a purpose, and for many people, it's working very well.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. And since there is so much buzz about it, there's a lot of great stories out there that are
Mhm.
so awesome to hear and inspiring. And then, of course, when you have millions and millions of people taking the medicine, there are going to be a group of people that don't have the
Of
best
course, like
journey.
anything.
Yeah, and so you have to take a little bit with a grain of salt. But what we can look at is clinical data, um, real life experience after treating hundreds of patients of like, hey, like what are the odds that you're going to do well versus maybe not, right? And I think as human nature is, our brains do have like a negative affinity, right?
Mhm.
Truly for survival, and so the negative stories often ring louder and stand out in our
Yes.
memory, right?
Yes, like
Yeah.
anything, right?
Yeah.
When I told people, "You know what? I'm gonna go to Mexico for cancer treatment instead of do chemo radiation in Canada,"
Yeah.
it's the same thing. People are
I
like,
bet
"Oh my
people
god, you're."
freaked. Yeah.
Oh, people freaked. My husband freaked, my parents freaked,
I
like,
bet.
everyone I knew other than my close girlfriends who were all crunchy like me, they all freaked. And, and it was like, I get it. I hear what you've heard, Mexico, dangerous, scary, you can't go to Tijuana, like, but
Yeah.
you know, for me, I was like, I knew it was the right thing, but it's like people
Yeah.
hear one thing and then they run on it. They're not gonna hear, all the people that say, "Hey, the care in Mexico is fantastic. The care in Mexico is better than anything you can get in Canada." Like, no one's gonna hear that. They're gonna hear
Sure.
about the one horror story of someone
Yeah.
who went to Mexico.
Or the stuff that's in the news, about it or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course, and so exactly like you're saying, I'm hearing my friends who have had bad experiences, but what about the, like, thousands of people who have had really amazing experiences
Yeah.
on it?
For sure. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. So these
Please.
GLP-1 medications, they're once a week injections that are
Mhm.
tiny needles. They go in your subcutaneous, your fat layer,
In your
just
stomach or
beneath your
something?
skin. Yeah, once a week. And um, They are what's called a peptide, which is a
Okay.
short chain of amino acid proteins
Okay.
that help tell our body signals about what to do. And GLP-1s are a hormone that our bodies are supposed to produce in our
Mhm.
guts that tell our
Mhm.
brain that we're not hungry or that we're full at appropriate
Okay.
times. And we found through research that lots of us, underproduce that GLP-1 hormone, which is
Really?
why so many of us have experienced this sensation of like, I am a bottomless pit. Like I can eat and eat
Yes.
and eat. And like,
Yes.
where is it going? I'm still hungry. And that's that system that's like not working optimally, right? And that's where some weight problems can come in. So in
Interesting.
clinical trials, depending on which medication, there's kind of two major ones: semaglutide, which is Ozempic and Wegovy; tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro and Zepbound. Two different kind of main players right this minute
Mhm.
in this space. And in clinical trials, people lost anywhere from 15 to 25% of their body weight
Oh,
on
dang.
these medications, um, which is so high, like really rivaling bariatric surgery
Yes.
high, right?
Which I've had. I've
Oh,
had bariatric surgery, but then I gained it all back. Like, after cancer treatment. So,
yeah,
I know.
understandable, 100% understandable, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Your body's been through so much stress, so much stress. Um, yeah, so like that's why they're game changing, is they do rival like,
Mhm.
absolute best results in the obesity space.
Great.
As far as like side effects and negative things, um, side effect profile is generally they're well tolerated by most
Mhm.
people, but side effects are fairly common. They're just usually mild and intermittent, and they tend to include GI upset stuff like nausea,
Okay.
constipation, diarrhea, vomiting. So,
Mhm.
like most people will notice a touch of something here or there. They'll know they're taking the medicine, but the vast majority of people feel like it's tolerable, worth it. And I think expert care makes a big difference. So, like your friend that kind of
Mm.
went about it in a little bit sketchy of a way, probably didn't
Found
have
it
very
off
much needed
Craigslist or
guidance.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
right.
You
So,
kinda
like,
get what
A,
you
who
pay
knows
for.
what she was giving herself, and
Literally,
B,
yes.
yeah, B, I think our intervention and our guidance really does limit side effects and optimize success. So,
Mm. That is awesome.
yeah.
So, like, when you have a client
Mhm.
come in, is there, some people that you're like, I don't think these GLP-1s will be good for you, or like, is there someone right off the hop it isn't going to work for, or is it like the first thing you kind of put people on?
Yeah, great question. So there are very few contraindications for
Mm,
somebody being a candidate for the medication. But the major two are a rare type of thyroid cancer called a medullary type thyroid cancer
mm.
in their personal or family history. And then the other one is pancreatitis. So if they've had a history of pancreatitis that was not related to a gallstone,
Mhm.
right? So if they had a gallstone and it caused pancreatitis and they've had their gallbladder removed, they can still take GLP-1s,
Okay, but if someone was like a drinker, for example, and
for
had like
example. Mhm.
pancreas damage, long
Correct.
term, they
Or if
would
they
not
just had
be.
idiopathic, like who knows
Mhm.
why, pancreatitis, we wouldn't want to risk that for those types of people. So
That
few
is fair.
contraindications, and these medications are generally a better choice than a lot of the others that we've had that came before it in the medical world, like
Mm,
phentermine. It's a stimulant. It's not very good for your heart. It's a controlled
right.
medicine.
Yes,
You
just like
know,
a meth.
yeah. So I mean, they really are kind of a safer option than a lot of them, but so those are like the, non-negotiable contraindications, but of course we take a whole clinical picture under consideration about,
Mhm,
hey, what's your weight? Do you have
mhm.
other comorbidities that are related to the weight, such
Right.
as arthritis or high blood pressure, cholesterol, cancer even can be considered one, or back pain, those can be considered related comorbidities. And like, do you need medical intervention to help you lose weight? Have you tried
Right.
lifestyle alone?
Yeah. So recently, like right around Christmas time, I was sent to the menopause clinic here in Edmonton, where I live, just because
Mhm.
chemo can do all kinds of
Yes.
things to your
For
body,
women, yeah.
including, early menopause. And
Mhm.
so I had a lot of the symptoms. So I went, to chat with them, do some blood work and some
Mhm.
physical exams and things like that. And I said to her, like, is this weight gain normal? Like 30 pounds in the last year? Like, is this normal? And she was like, "Well, menopause can do that." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, what are my options?" Thinking, "Hey, like,
Right.
let's reverse this." Obviously diet and lifestyle
Sure.
certainly can change everything. But,
Yep.
her response was semaglutide. So I
Mhm.
I thought, "Oh, is Ozempic my only option to take off this weight?" And then, of course I considered it, but then I thought, "No, I'm too crunchy for that." But I really do go back and forth because I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything wrong with, doing things to push you in the right direction, that
Yeah.
give you that motivation. It can be very disheartening, not even just for someone who's gone through cancer, but like anybody
Yeah.
who has this weight on them that they cannot, that eat well and work out and
100%.
nothing comes off. And this is what I'm experiencing right now.
100%, especially because it was not just your lifestyle choices that got you the 30
No,
pounds in a year. It was absolutely a medical situation,
totally. Yeah, it's
right?
not like I
And so
laid
why would
around and
we
ate
not
Taco
treat
Bell
a
every day.
medical situation to help somebody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I know. I really do go back and forth with
Yeah.
this, and it
I
is nice
understand.
to talk to somebody who has the information on it, because really
Yeah.
all this doctor said is, get your family doctor to prescribe you this. And it was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, and then what?"
I know.
Like,
Right, and as much as I do love semaglutide, right, of course, I use it every day. I also hate how women are just always, maybe not always, but a lot of times told, like, "Yeah, like, it is what it is. It's perimenopause. It's your hormones. Good luck. There's
mhm,
nothing you can do about it." Like, that just stinks, and that's really not the
yeah,
right thing,
totally.
So,
I know. For me, I lost my hair, I lost a boob, like,
right.
I feel like I just look different than I used to. I wear wigs and stuff now, and it's just like on top of that,
Mm.
already feeling like completely not myself, I also
Yes.
have this extra weight on me that doesn't feel like me. And then I feel like I run into people that I know, I live in a pretty small town. I run into people and then it's like I wonder if they're thinking, "Oh man, she like really put on that weight and stuff." And I'm sure
Right.
they're not, because for the most part people are, pretty understanding, like, "Oh, she went through cancer. Cancer's hard."
Oh, well,
But
yeah. Yeah,
but
for
I
sure.
always it's making me insecure. And like I'm not an
Right.
insecure person whatsoever, but like it's
Yep.
always in the back of my mind, like that's what people are
Right, and
thinking. And
that's a really, like, uncomfortable, sucky
yeah, it's horrible.
feeling, and it's a downer on your energy and your quality of life, and so as much as I am a body positive person and I don't want, like I said before, people wasting their energy
Mhm.
on, like, unattainable things that they have in their
Mhm.
head that they should look like, um, there's not a magic wand that can just erase that
Mhm.
programming through our whole
Mhm.
life that's in our head, and so, sometimes it's just sometimes we just gotta get people back to feeling healthier and more like themselves, and then that
Yeah.
confidence brings out so much more ability to just be healthy and,
Totally.
right.
It is a cycle, really.
Yeah,
Like, I go to the gym, I usually feel like I'm so tired or I've hurt myself at the gym and then I don't wanna go to the gym anymore, and then I feel like I'm putting on all this weight, so I go back to the gym.
gotta get
It's like
back. Yeah,
it is a nasty little cycle, and for
it is.
women, I think there's so much pressure put on us to look a certain way,
Yeah,
and it makes it fairly unattainable, you
yeah,
know,
right.
when you're not able to get out of that cycle.
Oh, it's so frustrating. So and weight loss is hard. Like, these semaglutide, tirzepatide, they're great, wonderful tools that I'm so
Mhm.
grateful that we have to offer people.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's the end all be all and you don't have to do anything else, right? It's a tool that helps your other
Right.
lifestyle things work better for you. And helps you get out of this like vicious cycle and turn it
Mhm.
more into a positive snowball, which that
Mhm.
positivity snowball is like what I love to see what happens, right? We get
Totally.
started working with somebody. Um, we make just tiny changes. They start the medicine, we make tiny lifestyle changes, they lose 10 pounds. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, my energy is better. I'm sleeping better. I can go to the
Yeah.
gym now. I can walk more. And it's fun to see people start wanting to do the healthier things for themselves naturally.
Totally. Yeah, once you get that momentum,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
you don't wanna lose the momentum, right?
Yeah,
Uh, it
exactly.
So my back is always sore, like constantly. Even prior to getting sick, my back was always sore. And recently I went to the physio because I was like, chiro's not doing it, massage isn't doing it. So I went to
Right.
physio and he said, your spine is compressed. And I was like, okay, that would explain, why it's in pain all the time. And then
Yeah.
he leans into me. Oh, this guy. He leans in and he goes, I have to ask you something. Please don't be sad. Like,
Oh
okay,
my
what is it?
God.
Did you gain a whole bunch of weight? Because that's not helping your back. Like,
That is, oh,
I did.
how did that
Thank
feel?
you. I'm
I mean, to
like
me, that
garbage.
immediately feels kind of gross to me, but how did it feel to you?
Totally. Yeah, not great. And the thing is, like,
Yeah.
I see him all the time because my kid goes there. I've known this guy for years. He's been my physio for years. He knew what I went through. He obviously saw me coming in bald all of a sudden and whatever. But, to say that, it was like, yeah, I did. I
No.
did gain a bunch of weight. Thank you for noticing and also pointing it out to me. I'm aware that the extra weight
No.
puts pressure, on
On
my
your back.
joints.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I
So then
know.
it was like, wow, okay.
And it's a tough
So
situation. Like, as a nurse practitioner, I spent
mhm,
almost a decade in primary care, um, you know, helping people across the lifespan. And like, yeah, weight has a lot to do with a lot of different conditions. And it's a
literally.
really tough subject to broach in like a kind, respectful way.
Right.
Right. So I get it. And sometimes it does need to be spoken about. You
Mhm.
have to be so careful about how you approach it. And
Yeah. I think if it's, it's a person who clearly is not taking care of themselves, is, going
right.
down the wrong direction, for sure. Like you're concerned for their health. Someone who's constantly like in physio, in chiro, and all of the things to try and get better. Clearly, I know.
Uh-huh.
Clearly, I'm aware of it. And
Oh, I
like,
know. And like you saying that doesn't actually help me with anything. Yeah.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Like since that day, that was about a month ago. I haven't gone to the gym more
Right,
because
because
of
you
it.
said that. Yeah.
Right. And in fact, I actually didn't go back to him as a physio since then
Yeah.
because I thought like it's
I
kind of inappropriate.
know.
It's kind of
Right.
it.
Like it feels a little
Yeah,
judgy, unhelpful.
yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. So I mean, unless he's
Yeah.
gonna give me some herbs,
Right. Like, do you have any
you know,
solutions for me,
yeah,
or are
like
you just gonna point things out?
yeah, like he said
Yeah.
he was a doctor in India. Like unless you bring in me something black market that I can take, like mind your business.
I know.
I know, I know.
I know. I hear you. I hear you. But I guess one more reminder is like these meds are like 98% naturally occurring peptides, protein chains.
Okay.
So there's almost not much more natural than that. So,
Totally.
right?
So, okay, so just backing up to what you were talking about at the very beginning. So, does it curb hunger? Is that kind of what it is? It stops food cravings, or how does it
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. Let me tell you. So there's like three primary mechanisms of action on how it helps us improve our metabolic health and therefore lose weight. So the first is as an appetite suppressant,
Hmm.
but it's not a stimulant. It's not like
Hmm.
phentermine or fen-phen of the past that gave us people heart attacks. Um, right? It
You're
works on
skinny,
the
but you have a heart attack, so
right. Yeah.
perfect.
Enjoy. Yeah. So it works on that gut brain connection of
Hmm.
that GLP-1 hormone that tells our brain hey, we're satisfied with the food that we need to eat for our energy needs,
Hmm.
and you're not overly hungry. So that's its primary mechanism. Number two is it improves our insulin sensitivity. So it helps our system use the insulin our pancreas produces to
Hmm.
listen better to that insulin and uptake our blood sugar. And it helps keep our insulin levels and our blood sugar levels more balanced.
Hmm.
And physiologically, that makes for a better environment to allow for weight loss. So when people are out like exercising, dieting, doing all the darn things and getting nowhere, it's usually because of insulin resistance. And
Right.
until we fix that physiological problem, they're going to
Hmm.
struggle to see results. So that's number two.
And that, that what you're saying that makes sense now. I recently did a hair analysis, a hair mineral
Yeah,
test, and it was coming back that there was some insulin resistance for me as
fascinating.
well.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, like what does that mean?" But okay, that,
Mhm.
that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and we actually know that chemotherapy does increase insulin resistance. So that
Oh, oh
has
good.
a lot.
One
Yeah.
of its many side effects.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So a lot to do with that. And then last mechanism of action is it slows digestion through our GI tract. So
Hmm.
food stays in our stomach longer, which helps us feel
Hmm.
full longer and need to eat less, and that's helpful. But you can imagine if food is like slower to transit through your guts, that's where those GI side effects come from as far as
Right.
heartburn or, makes sense, right?
So what about like taking a digestive enzyme, for
That's right.
example, or
For
digestive
sure.
enzyme with ox bile just to help promote that breakdown of fat, the breakdown of protein? Like
For
how
sure.
would that be helpful when taking this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of dietary choices that can help mitigate side effects in general. We want people following like a low carb Mediterranean style of eating,
Right.
which is kind of like lean protein, lots of veggies, less
Mhm.
carbs, but nothing is off limits, is our
Right.
philosophy at Weight Loss NP. And we have a lot of success with that. And we have found if people drink lots of water, it
Mhm.
really helps with both results weight loss wise
Mhm.
and side effect mitigation. Makes a
I can
huge
see that.
difference.
Well, you're also flushing a lot of
Toxic
toxicity
stuff
as well.
and fat and yeah,
Yeah.
your actual weight breakdowns. Yeah, exactly. So those diet and lifestyle sort of changes, avoiding too heavy, greasy of food and
Mhm.
too like lots of carbs, sugar tend to up
Right.
side effects. So those sorts of things. Digestive enzyme for sure. I think that could do really no harm and
Mhm.
might help people. Sometimes we use magnesium
Mhm.
as a great supporter of constipation side effect.
Citrate, magnesium
Yes,
citrate or oxide or something?
nice citrate
Yeah,
typically
okay.
for the constipation. Yep. And, most of us are deficient in magnesium anyways, and it
Right.
helps us with so many body processes such as
Totally.
sleep, metabolism, all sorts of
Body
things.
pain, heart palpitations,
Yeah,
relaxation, sleep, all the things, yes.
I know, right? And
Yeah.
so we use that as a way to just
Oh, awesome.
give people the mineral that they need and magnesium for so many body systems, but also it helps mitigate side effects. So yeah, we have
Interesting.
a lot of tricks up our sleeves to like mitigate side effects, make it as pleasant of a journey as possible and effective. So
Right. So
yeah,
typically, how long would a person be on it, or is it different
yeah,
for every person? Is there a typical course?
yeah, good question. So we're always after a medically appropriate rate of weight loss, which is
Mhm.
defined as half a pound to 2 pounds a week.
Mhm.
And so that's what we're after because we want the weight loss that people experience to be long-term weight loss that they don't
Yeah,
regain,
literally.
right?
Yeah.
So we want to do it in a healthy manner that includes lifestyle changes and
Mhm.
habits and mindset work and all the things that set people up for long-term success. And so you can kind of back calculate, a person could back calculate their expected time of treatment based on, half a pound to 2 pounds a week.
I see. So
Does that make sense?
someone couldn't be on this for a year, 2 years kinda thing, or could they be depending on how much
They
weight they had
absolutely
to
can be.
lose?
Depending on how much weight they want to be losing for sure. And plateaus are normal in a weight loss
Right.
journey, whether or not supported by medication. It's, expect them, move through them in a positive manner and kind of stay encouraged because they're going to happen. And, at our practice, we have lots of, again, tricks up our sleeves to help people get through those frustrating plateaus. Um, but so, yeah, you can kind of back calculate. One good point to recognize with these medications is they were developed initially for diabetes patients, and
Right.
those folks aren't coming off their medicine. They're on them
That's right.
long term, right? And so medically, there's not pressure for people to come off of the medications. They're safe and fine for long term use. And some people prefer to just take them long term for maintenance. But at our practice, we have kind of a goal, a plan A to titrate people off
Of course.
methodically and get them living their best life and maintaining their weight successfully on their own. And then,
Mhm.
of course, we have a backup plan if needed. We can support them with medication if needed, but we like to empower people to be able to maintain
Yeah.
on their own. Mhm.
Of course. Now, are you finding afterwards, because I hear people say, well, I went on something, not even just this, but anything. I did this, and then as soon as I went off, I gained again. I mean, look at me. I lost 75 on in weight loss surgery, and
Right.
I've gained 55 back. So, I mean,
Sure.
at some point, if you're not following the
Yep.
lifestyle changes, like you're gonna see a
That's it.
reverse, right? Yeah.
That's exactly right. Right. Yep. That's exactly right. So our bodies are so fascinating and
Yes.
adaptable, and they overcome so much of our interventions that we do, both positive and negative, right? And it's
Mhm.
interesting, but there's a lot of cellular, hormonal, um, nitty-gritty things that happen that make weight regain a reality
Mhm.
for a lot of people. And it's not because a person, necessarily fell off the wagon and did a bunch of things wrong. That's not necessarily the truth for everybody. The
Yeah,
truth is hormonally, cellularly, there's things that are pushing back against that. And so it is something that we have to be careful about, because we are absolutely after long-term healthy weight, because that's how we reduce risk
for sure.
over time, is stay at our healthy weight long term.
Hmm.
So that's our priority. And how we need to achieve that can be adjusted based on a person's individual needs. So risk of regain is always there with
Right.
any method
With
of weight loss,
anything. Yeah.
any method. And there is nothing that like the medications change in your body that makes it like going to be physiologically different if you come off of it. That's not,
Hmm.
not a thing. If you stop the medication, your physiology will go back just the exact way it
Hmm.
was. It's not like you ruined anything. So,
Oh, that's good. So
yeah.
with your company, the Weight Loss NP, do you then give that support to people to, you know, learn what their triggers are, learn when
Yes.
they're full? Because that's one thing I feel like I missed going to Mexico, having weight loss surgery in 2014. I became friends with the coordinators, I guess,
Yeah.
the ladies working. I became friends with them.
Right.
So instead of them being, my support to teach me and all the things, because they had a professional working relationship, we now had this, you know, behind the scenes relationship,
Okay.
friendship. And
Yeah.
so I feel like I really missed out on the support of
Um,
what made you overweight in the first place? Why were you eating to
yes.
deal with your feelings in the first place? What are your triggers?
Yes.
How do you respond? And so, when you have weight loss surgery and all of a sudden your stomach is the size of a banana, like, and you want to emotionally eat and you can't because
That's
you feel like
tough.
you're dying after you
Right?
eat too much, then it's like, what do you have to do? If you're just replacing one
Yes.
compulsion, addiction, whatever you want to call it, with something
Yes.
else. For me, it
Yeah.
was I couldn't drink for 6 months after.
Yeah.
I didn't do drugs or anything like that. I could no longer eat. So what did I do? Like, I threw myself into dating. I needed male attention constantly. And it
Right.
was like when I met someone and I'm now married and stuff, obviously that's not what I'm after anymore. And
Yeah.
then I find I'm back to eating again, even though
Yeah.
it's hard for me because my stomach is still smaller,
Right.
obviously not as small as it once was, but
Yeah.
I'm back to eating again because I don't think I've ever actually dealt with
The
when I'm
underlying
triggered.
reason.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think mental, emotional health really is at one of the core
Yeah.
issues when it comes to weight gain and regain.
Mhm.
Um, and just general weight struggles, because as humans our relationship with food is so much more than just an energy need.
Yeah.
Biologically, it's an emotional outlet, it's a social
Pleasure.
outlet,
Yeah.
it's celebration, it's
Yes.
marked with every single aspect of our lives. And so if food was your primary emotional tool to deal with things, whether it be sad or happy,
Mhm.
right, then that you have to replace that, right?
Mhm.
You're exactly right. So, one exercise that we have a lot of our patients do that are struggling with emotional eating is to write down a list of strategies to help themselves with stress,
Mm.
um, and or celebration ideas that are
Okay.
not related to food. So, for example, like stress eating, instead of reaching for the sweets or the chips or whatever, they would reach for their list that we've written through with them, and they
Interesting.
want to keep that list really nice and accessible, like pinned
Yeah.
up somewhere that they see a lot. Because when we're in a moment of stress, we're going to go to immediately what is most ingrained in us habit wise,
Right. Yeah.
right? So you're going to have to remind yourself, you're going to have to bring yourself back to these new ideas. And those ideas tend to be things like, um, I could go for a walk, I could listen to music, I could um, open a window and take some deep breaths of
Right.
fresh air. I can turn on a meditation app or go through some sort of meditation in my own brain or prayer.
Mhm.
Just small, doable things like that that only take a few minutes to
Mm.
support their mental health.
Right. Sometimes you really only need just a shift of mindset and to just
Yeah.
completely take your thoughts off of it. I was listening to a Zoom or a podcast or something recently, and
Mhm.
and they were saying like around that 8 o'clock p.m. hour, you start to get a little bit of a craving thing happening,
Yeah.
probably as your blood sugar drops or whatever.
Yes.
And it said like, especially if you're someone who fasts, you're not
Yeah.
eating in that window, just doing something to take your mind off of it, like even going for a walk, they said
Mhm.
it's usually about a 45-minute window where you're like angsty, I'm bored, I need to eat something, I need snacks, I need sugar. If you just went for a walk in that time, like it probably that craving would be gone by the time you
Yeah,
got
it
back.
would probably pass. Yeah, and probably similar to what you've heard, one of the explanations for that late night cravings that I think is true and rely on is that before bed, our bodies do like a nutritional inventory of
Mm.
the day and think about what nutritional gaps have I had? And our body is
Mm.
not good at delineating specific gaps. So, say you didn't get enough protein that day, it's not necessarily going to say, go eat some protein. Wouldn't that be
Right.
lovely if it did?
Yeah, right.
It just can say, go eat.
Go eat, yeah.
Right. And then late
Mhm.
night, we usually pick things that are convenient and yummy that
Convenient.
we can eat
Chips
for
and
carbs.
candy. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Popcorn. Yeah.
Right? So I think if you're struggling with late night cravings, it's a helpful exercise to be thinking throughout your day, how can I make my day nutritionally complete? Am I getting enough protein? Am
Right.
I eating my veggies and my fruit? Perhaps take a multivitamin to just
Mhm.
fill in those gaps and see if that helps.
Mhm. And it is interesting when you are nourished or satiated properly, you're getting the
Right.
amount of protein and fats that you need, your body really doesn't crave anything else, right? Like you can really curb sweet cravings by having enough protein,
I
honestly.
know, right? Yeah. And I think knowing the physiology behind that, like what I just shared about our body's not good at asking for what it actually needs. It's just good at
Mhm.
asking for food in general. Um, I think that can make a lot of sense and help
Mhm.
people. Yeah.
Well, I think this is why like food prepping is so helpful for some people to
Yeah.
stay on track. For me, I don't like to food prep. Well, I especially don't like to meal prep because I don't want to eat the same meal 3 days in a
Over
row.
and over.
That's
Yeah.
too gross.
Yeah.
I would rather, cut up my fruit, cut up my veggies, whatever, my meats, have them in the fridge, and
Yeah.
then pull them out as I need them. But, if I'm feeling even the slightest bit lazy, I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, right. I'm
Totally.
gonna go to my cupboard instead and pull some chocolate out of wherever
Yeah.
or chips.
I know.
So it's almost like you need to not have those things in your house if you find
Mhm.
that you're tempted by it.
Right.
And I'm not telling people to like not have
Have
those
any of
things
it ever.
ever because,
Right.
when I was sick, was of the mindset that if I ate anything that cheated on this diet, I'm going to die. And
Mm,
so that's, there's a traumatic piece linked to that now as well. Like the thought
yeah.
of juicing, it makes me panic, the thought of having a fresh juice with
Because
carrots
it's
and
linked
celery
to
and all the
that.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it brings me back
And
to like you
brings
have
you
to
in the
do this,
weeds
you're
of
going to
that
die.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't juice 64 ounces of fresh vegetables a day, death, right? It was a lot, it was exhausting.
That's awesome.
And so
That's
I think that's why I went, like, so far the other end, like, yeah, I'm still very healthy in a lot of the things I do, but then I just got real lax with my eating as well, because it was just like, I was eating pretty good before getting sick, and
yeah.
then I got sick. So you're telling me that if I
True.
don't eat good right now, I'm gonna get sick again or not get sick or whatever? Like, I don't
I
know, to me,
know.
it just didn't make sense that, like, having
Yep.
an ice cream now and then was gonna,
Yeah.
like, make cancer come back. So I had to,
Totally.
like, give myself grace in that as well. Like,
Yeah.
you're probably not gonna die if you eat this, but also, like, know that your body doesn't respond well to this food, but, like, you're also
Sure.
human and you wanna feel like a human again.
Yeah. And it just comes back to the everything in moderation
Yes.
outlook, I think really is the right outlook to
Yeah.
have for
Yeah, and
all of us, whether on a weight loss journey or not. And
totally.
we tell our clients at our practice, like, we are not asking for perfection.
No,
We really are not
an
because
effort.
yeah, exactly, right? And, aim for 80-20 or 85-15 as far as being on
Mhm.
track versus, indulgences. And that's enough to lead a healthy life in
Yeah.
general.
S
Um,
So
so
Ashley, my
yeah,
co-host here,
yeah.
we had interviewed a fellow who works in a eating disorder clinic.
Wow.
And so we were chatting with him about it, and she had made a very good point that, like, nowadays eating properly is considered a diet and eating bad is
Oh,
considered normal. And
gosh,
it's
so
like the
true.
mindset around that. So even saying, 85-15 or 80-20, you're like, I can only eat junk 20% of the time. Like that's tough because I think for the most part, most people are probably 50-50, if not more, the other way.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's
Mhm,
insightful for me to think about as,
mhm.
in my, niche of expertise because, I do want to meet people where they're at, right? And if they're at
Mhm.
50-50 or even maybe lopsided the other way, like,
Mhm.
hey, their initial goal might be 70-30 or sixty
Mhm.
forty. You know?
So with people that come in, like I know
Mhm.
with the weight loss surgery, for me, I paid for it out of pocket. I went to Tijuana.
Right.
It was no big deal. My friend's mom did a weight loss surgery here, but she was in training and counseling for like years until they would
Right.
do it
You would approve
because
it.
they,
Yep.
they wanted to train her properly.
Yes.
They wanted to teach her the proper
Yep.
ways to eat and the triggers to look for and whatever.
Yeah.
Do you ever do that before putting somebody on one of these GLP ones? Like if they come in, they're like a binge eater or they're whatever. Do
Yeah.
you
We
wait?
believe in supporting a person medically
Mhm,
with a safe, solid medical intervention like a
mhm,
GLP-1 while we're teaching them and
mhm.
helping smooth over some habits, mindsets, lifestyle situations that contributed to getting them there in the first place. And so,
Right,
we know if we help them medically, if we help smooth out their blood sugar and their insulin control and their cravings, they're going to be a lot more successful implementing the changes we're suggesting as far as, you know, eating more protein or veggies and meal prep or whatever it
right.
might be, any of those
Yeah.
suggestions, going for walks, if they feel more under control and more supported in a physiologic standpoint. So we won't withhold treatment at, before
Mhm,
X, Y, or Z. Like, we're going to get them going on treatment and
mhm,
get them going on doable lifestyle changes
mhm.
that are not insane. Like you mentioned with your juicing, like that's amazing. And, maybe it really helped you heal. That's fantastic. But as you kind of alluded to, like, it's not something that you could
I
continue
hate it
doing
now.
for the rest
I
of your
hate it.
life.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And so the changes we ask people to make are really ones that they are excited about, they feel like are doable for their
Attainable.
life. And yeah, and long
Yeah,
term, they feel
yeah.
happy with doing long term.
Yeah, and I think another big issue with what we're probably I can't speak for any other country, whatever, Canada, America, North
Yeah.
America. I know how our food is. I know
Yeah.
how our convenience is, our
Yeah. Ultra
workload is.
processed. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, obviously, a lot of the other world or other parts of the world are not like this, but
True.
speaking for North America, um, we are sort of trained from a child to eat when we're emotional, whatever, like you're
Mhm.
upset, your kid's crying, you give them a snack. So we're taught
Yes.
from that. It's very convenient to eat anywhere that you want
Yeah.
on the go at any given time.
Right.
It's
Like, food
usually
is
cheaper.
overly accessible. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Junk is
it- Junk is
cheaper a
cheap.
lot of
Like
times.
it's
Yep.
cheaper to buy a pop or soda, I guess, in the States than it is to buy a water,
I
you
know,
know?
and that's just terrible. It's terrible. I
And
hate that
then
for us.
to go even further, like, even if you do make those choices, like, "I'm gonna have a salad today from this fast food place. I'm gonna have a
Right.
water." It's like, well, that water is actually, full of microplastics and chemicals and all
I
this
know.
stuff.
And
And then
the salad dressing's full of sugar. It's like, oh
exactly,
my
and,
god.
like, these vegetables were sprayed with glyphosate before they came to you. And so it's like, what can I eat? Honestly. And then we're also, like, taught here again excess everything.
Right.
The states in Canada, I mean, especially the states, like excess is the thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
bigger is always better. Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
And it's like, so you want to eat more, portions are huge.
I
After
know.
the weight loss surgery, I started eating on a small plate, like
Yes.
a side
An
plate or
8-inch
whatever,
or a lunch size plate. Yep.
because it's like that buffet mentality. When you go
Yes.
out, you want to
Gotta
fill up
fill
your
the
plate.
space,
And then
right?
you can't, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, like, I can't eat all this, but I have to because I don't wanna waste it." And I think
I
also we
know.
were taught, people our age, I mean,
Yeah.
your parents are probably the same as mine, like, you have to eat everything on your plate.
You have to
You
finish
can't
what you got. Yeah. Right, and,
like
part of our process is intuitive eating, and it's,
yeah.
listening to yourself. Am I hungry and am I
Mhm,
full? And abiding by those cues.
mhm.
That's how we learn to have those cues actually speak to us, is if we never listen to them, then they're gonna
Yeah.
be quiet eventually, and we're not gonna get them. But the medications help those cues to be more,
Mm,
um, you can hear them easier. And so then you
that's
start
cool.
to relearn how to respect and abide by your body telling you the things that it needs.
Amazing. I know one of the cues that I had learned for
Mhm.
fullness was, hiccups or a runny nose or
Like,
whatever. I can't remember
if
the
you're
other one.
sniffing,
Yeah,
yeah,
mine
one
was
I
runny nose
learned
for
is a
sure.
sigh. Like
Oh, a
if you ever
sigh.
sigh in your meal, then
Then you're
that
safe to
means you're
eat it,
probably
right?
full. Yeah.
Interesting. Mine is like nose running for sure. Like if my nose
Wow.
starts running, it's like,
You're
yeah,
full.
I'm
I had
full.
never heard of that one before. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Just be mindful of it. If you
I know
go
I
eat at a
will.
buffet, you're like,
I
rubbing your
know.
nose.
I feel like my
Maybe.
husband sniffs sometimes when he's eating. So now I'm gonna be like, "Are you
Well,
full?"
there you go. Well, and I guess if you figure like the GI tract is like sinus to anus, like,
Sure, yeah.
you're eating, everything's moving along in
It's all
there. Like, of
connected.
course, it's going to affect
Yeah.
your nose. So,
Yeah. That's
okay,
so interesting.
yeah, that is interesting. Hey.
Yeah. But
Okay, well, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? And I know you mentioned at the beginning that you deal with people from Colorado and Utah. That's who you can prescribe
prescribed
to. But
medicines,
what
yeah.
can you do again for people who don't live in those two states?
Yeah, so we can do GLP-1 and weight loss coaching
Okay,
anywhere, and we operate via telehealth. It's just we
cool.
can't use our medical license
Right.
outside of the states we're licensed in. But we have a lot to offer outside of that as well. And so you can connect with us on our website, which is the WLNP.com, as in weight loss NP, the WLNP. And then I'm sure Becky, you'll put some links in the show
Totally.
notes, I
Yep.
presume, where you can find us on social
Mhm.
media, Facebook, Instagram, etc. On our website, we always have a link to like some great freebies, like a 4-week metabolic reset diet
Oh, cool.
plan, other stuff like that. So if you just need some inspiration on recipes or ideas or whatever, check it out, and you're welcome to that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show here today. I feel actually very good about it now because you said
Yeah,
all we hear is the bad stuff because of
right.
survival instincts.
Yeah,
It's really cool to be able to hear some really positive things
yeah,
about this
for
drug.
sure.
I don't know if drug is the right word to call it, but
Sure, you can. Yeah. And, one point that I was excited to just make, if you don't mind, you have a couple minutes, just really
yeah, of
fast,
course.
um, with your specific journey and like your show being two girls without cancer, which I love.
Thank you.
Yes. But our blood sugar control, I think, really does play into, um, potential risk for cancer as well as your ability to stay in remission.
Hmm.
Um, and keeping in mind that a blood sugar that's very variable, especially if it's high, a lot of times is going to feed those cells that are growing
Hmm. Of course.
improperly, right? And so I think keeping that in mind and, maybe even considering that, like, hey, if you're having some insulin resistance, that means your blood sugar is out of control at certain times. And
Hmm.
so as part of your cancer healing journey, that's another reason why you might consider a medication that helps control your blood sugar.
That makes sense. And I mean, I guess in its original state, it was diabetes medication, right?
Yes,
So that would make sense that it ties into that blood sugar handling type
that's exactly right. Yeah,
piece.
well
So
done.
yeah, I
Yeah,
guess that makes sense.
yeah,
Okay, well, thank you again. And I hope that we can have you on again when Ashley's here
yeah.
because I know she'll have a million questions as well.
I'd love to meet her. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks, Becky.
So once again, fantastic guests. Like not to toot my own horn or anything, but I've really loved all these guests that I've picked to come on here for this season. I think this one is very relevant to what we are going through today. Like, who do you know that doesn't talk about Ozempic all the time? Like, I am definitely guilty of it. Even as crunchy as I am, holistic as I am, I've thought about going on it 100 times. So yeah, I think it's really cool to just, clear up some of the preconceived ideas about it, the stigma with it, and just to learn from someone who's an expert in her field on it. So if you want to have support for GLP-1 care, this way, the WLNP.com is her website, and check out the show notes for all of her social medias. We will be back next week. Hopefully, Ashley will be back. We've got a bunch of great guests lined up. We've got some motivational speakers. There is still a psychiatrist. I said one day that there was a therapist or psychiatrist. I'm still waiting to talk to her. A bunch of other people lined up. So just stay tuned every Tuesday for Two Girls Without Cancer.